What is up, everybody? Jason Burmis here. So weird, we already have 10 people watching. I wonder if there's a scheduled program or something that I'm not seeing. Anyway, guys, here we are. We're on Main Street for the second week, and it's another round of LARPing. This is supposed to be a 1950s party. Nobody's dressed up in 1950s gear. I'd be further down the way, and we're going to walk through, but they're blasting music through their Orwellian speakers that are already used to yell at people remotely, right? So let's talk about this. The economy here is devastated, okay? And this is helping nobody, all right? Putting a bunch of colorful pennies in the middle of the road really just obstructs things. You see, it's the 15th of August, and what would normally be going on here is the last round of college kids would be driving through Main Street, would be going to move into their dorms, and would be going to live their regular college lives. Meanwhile, Main Street would be bustling, not only with the parents, but with the students themselves. Instead, I've got a bunch of zombies wearing masks and then signing pledges that they are going to obey every authoritarian measure they give them, or they'll get kicked out of school, right? So one of the things that I read yesterday, which was absolutely ridiculous, was the mayor here, Gary Herzig, did an op-ed piece. It wasn't really even an op-ed piece. It was just like a message from Otsego County where he talked about the sacrifice of all the people here and how the students would also have to sacrifice and not socialize. It's not realistic. 6,000 kids are not going to socialize with each other. 6,000 18 to 24-year-olds. It's imagination land. But Gary Herzig has failed as a mayor. Gary Herzig should be ashamed of himself. Gary Herzig has failed as a man, as an actual man, to stand up against authoritarian measures. That's what's really scary, right? Is the fact that you have somebody who had local law enforcement who were appalled at what they were doing with this, right? Who would have stood side by side with them and said, you know, we're not going to lock down. We are going to allow our businesses to open. Instead, he went lockstep with everything Cuomo said and did. And even in his propaganda piece yesterday, he talked about a spike here in Oneonta, or Otsego County. There's no spike here in Oneonta. That's absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, talk about LARPing. They can't even get the 1950s music right. Nobody's wearing this stuff. We're gonna walk through it as I talk, because it really upsets me to see this, right? I'm gonna walk past a bunch of zombies in masks. I'm gonna walk past a bunch of people that think social distancing is a real thing. I'm gonna walk past a bunch of people that have no idea how bad it's going to get once all the free money rolls out, right? Once that's over with, once there are no checks, once you can't just get an extra $400, $500, $600 a week on top of your unemployment, how in the world is even the fraction of what survived in the service industry going to survive after the fact? They're not. They're not going to survive, okay? And as you can tell, not really bumping here, right? All this stuff and the safety stations, ooh, hand sanitizer. I'll say it again. I've used hand sanitizer 0 times since this happened. 0 times. I'm not in fear. It's absolutely ridiculous. Yet every time I walk down this street, it's the zombie apocalypse, man. Like, there are actual people that believe that if they put a piece of paper over their face, somehow the invisible virus can't get to them. Anybody looking at this is like nonsense. Now, it's not 80 or 90 degrees out today. It's probably a cool 60 or 70. Doesn't matter much. We're trying to make it past this as quick as possible because we don't want the copyright strikes. Oh, that's the one difficult thing about this whole thing, is that anytime I'm outside, I've really got to watch that. The last time I did a interview with Jeffrey Wilson of the Conspiracy Farm, and I had music in the background, I got it. And of course, I mean, it doesn't matter, I'm fully demonetized on the platform, but at the same time, you know, I don't need any strikes or anything for them to put. So this is it. This is why they shut down Main Street, so they could have an empty Main Street, all right? Now, the thing that really bothers me is this coffee shop would be dominating anyway. It'd be doing great. Tiger Asian would be doing great. They'd be doing 3, 4, 5 times the business. The old bar I ran right here would be open at noon, and like I said, because so many people are moving in, they'd be packed right now. They would be packed right now. But instead, all these kids are signing these draconian pledges that they're gonna wear masks outside, they're gonna social distance, they're not gonna throw parties, they're not gonna have gatherings of more than 10 people. LARPing, okay? No one's doing that. That's not how humans act. And as you can see, you know, fear stations everywhere. Fear, wear a mask, fear, hand sanitizer, fear. And it's really sad to me, you know. Let me count this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I'm gonna pass about 20 people right now that are sitting down. Let me assure you, you'd have 40 to 50 in that shop, you know, if the madness wasn't going on. But unfortunately, as you can tell, the zombie apocalypse is really here, and they got teenagers in masks on Main Street. Teenagers in masks on Main Street while they want you to dump hand sanitizer all over yourself.
There's a nurse on
It's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, man. And I would assume by next week, when they do this again, and I think that by then school will have started up. I mean, there's no way they can regulate any of this unless, you know, they try to do the draconian thing and they go after a couple people selectively for not wearing this or having a party here or there. They're talking about a $1,000 fine on the first offense. Let me repeat that, $1,000 fine on the first offense. And, you know, in one sense of the word, I kind of can't wait for them to come back so they can challenge all this madness. But then I see a bunch of them with their parents as they come in, and they're already trained to wear a muzzle on a main drag in a place where there aren't any spikes, unlike what Gary Herzig, Mr. I Failed to Be a Man, wrote and tried to propagandize and talk about sacrifice. People have lost their jobs. They've lost their careers and businesses. Yes, because of you. Because you have the spine of a jellyfish. Because you refused to stand up for those businesses. Now, there are certain businesses that have just really from the get-go kind of done their own thing and pushed back a little. You know, I don't want to name any of them that may be operating. I mean, I don't think it's illegally, you know, illegally compared to what the executive orders that should have no merit whatsoever. I mean, I watched Capo Cuomo yesterday, and it was basically him talking about, again, selective enforcement. Certain gyms can now open under certain protocols on Monday. Let's see what those protocols are. He talked about more executive orders to what? Bring in mail-in voting, okay? Guys, mail-in voting. And then he blamed the parents. He blamed the parents for not wanting to send their kids to school, or the teachers for being too scared to send their kids to school. That's not the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is that anybody in school, aka K through 12, that has the sniffles, that has a cough, that has a sore throat, you're gonna take and isolate and then put in an isolation room, send them home, test them for COVID, and keep them away from other kids for 2 weeks. That's why they don't want to go in there. They don't want muzzles on their kids. They don't want some kind of weird social distance LARP being taught to their children. So stop blaming everybody else, Cuomo. The buck stops with you. He said that, the buck stops with me, except for when you call me out on my bullshit. Then I'll blame everybody else. Still blaming the federal government for what he did with nursing homes, literally murdering people. And I'm not being dramatic. I'm not being over the top. I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that. You go watch those interviews, those speeches that were given a couple Mondays back over at the Capitol building by those people that lost their loved ones, their fathers and mothers. And you tell me he's not a murderer. He's a murderer. And yet he'll just say, oh, well, that's the New York Post. Oh, that's Fox News. No, that was you and a complicit media all around saying you're America's governor. That's what that was. And now he's going to be on the virtual Democratic National Convention speech where he could endorse Zombie Joe and Kamala Vampiris. When are we going to get the picture that these are career criminals, they are the true gangsters, and they're not even top level. They're mid-range, okay? 31 thumbs up, 122 watching. Let's get those thumbs up. And because they're mid-range, when you get down to the really low levels, like the city of Oneonta mayor, you've got nothing but malleable mush. You don't have a man, you don't have a human being that's gonna stand up for the people and their rights, the Constitution, freedom of speech. No, no, no. You've got a spineless, malleable piece of really just authoritarian filth, right? And he's waiting for other authoritarians to tell him how he should rule over us. He shouldn't rule over us. Honestly, you should step down. You should step down today and allow somebody who's going to step up to the plate and say this is nuts. Because if you don't think that if we had the right guy here, I couldn't get 2,000 students and 1,000 people from Otsego County to march in my small town to reopen everything and stop with the LARPing, you're crazy. Of course I could. And it might have to happen before I leave. Speaking of leaving, I wanted to be on the road today, guys. No doubt. But there are 2 children involved, really trying to push my sister as hard as I can to get in that car by next week so we can go and basically rent a place. I don't want to be here past October 1st. So with your help, I'll be doing that. The GoFundMe link is down below. Thumbs the video up, subscribe, and share. And remember, $5, $10, $15 means the world to me. We're fully demonetized on this platform. Not a lot of notifications go out. What can I do? You know, I'm working with what I got. Love you guys, and I'll see you on the flip.